We're going to go beneath the surface of things a little bit. Building inner strength, what I mean by that would be really easy to conceive of it as like a Tony Robbins sort of approach, like accomplishing your goals, how to be consistent, how to get things done. And while that's fantastic, and it is a little bit of what I'm trying to express here, I definitely don't want to take that kind of approach. And that's not because I don't like Tony Robbins. I actually love him, and I use him because he's like the quintessential, motivational, self-empowerment kind of dude. And, he's great at it too, right? And that's why we all know him, or most of us know who he is because of that. But it's not exactly what I want to do. So the first nuance, or the first thing I'm going to talk about when we start talking about building inner strength, is the difference between self-empowerment and self-realization. Now, I like to think of myself more in the school of self-realization. Self-empowerment is about getting what I want, sort of finding my strength and my power and, accomplishing things and manifestation and all that kind of stuff. Self-realization is a little bit more about seeing how that already exists, like aligning yourself instead of trying to force something or make something happen all the time. So self-realization is more about realizing that you already have everything you need. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't go and try to accomplish or manifest something. It absolutely you can. I mean, I'm here doing that with you right now, right? I'm sitting here live streaming, sharing my thoughts and my feelings and the things that I've learned. This is my way of manifesting, you could say. But it's about how you approach it and where you come from when you're doing it. And I can share with you that, on your way to self-realization, you're certainly going to be crossing through some territory that is self-empowerment. That is to realize your own power, to realize your responsibility in things, the fact that how you feel and think really affects your world and what you accomplish, right? I mean, this is that kind of self-empowerment thinking. And it's very useful, very important. I just don't want to stop there. And actually, I'm not going to focus most of my conversation today here in that realm. I'm going to try to go a little deeper, you might say, more to the fundamentals. That's how I like to look at it. So, and that makes it very applicable to every realm. So, building inner strength, we're trying to say, let's say that you're trying to accomplish something, so like a manifestation sort of thing, or you're trying to work on something, whether it's a relationship or build something like a new business or something like that. That we're going to be talking about that. It's just about how we go about it. I want to share with you the fact that, first of all, I've traveled through the land of self-empowerment quite a bit. I mean, it was a good chunk of my life, actually. Tony Robbins had a massive impact on my life. That's why I don't mean to disparage him in any way. I actually admire him greatly, and I'm grateful to him. I mean, I owe him a lot for actually awakening me to some of the stuff here. So what I want to say, though, is that there's another way to go about it. And again, because I've traveled through this, I love to share this with you because I know the difference it can make. And one of the differences it can make is actually finishing something, actually seeing something through to its finish. That's something that's rare for most of us. I know it was for me for a long time. So the space that I'm going to share with you is starting to understand the difference between willpower and willingness. Self-empowerment is a lot more about willpower. Self-realization is about willingness. And there's a really big, I don't know if you can sense that, but there's a really big difference there between those two things. Now, by the way, we're not trying to say, I want to say this right away, we're not trying to say that we don't need willpower. We'll get to that in a little bit. It's just that we have to understand its purpose and its place, might be the best way to say it. So I want to say too, though, before we get into this, I'd like to share a little bit about myself so that you have some context, okay? So the place that I'm sharing with you, the space, this different approach, is the approach from which I created or wrote 2 books all the way through to publication. I did that while I was working full-time. Now that's like, in my world, that's like 50 hours at least, usually, of my time. I created 2 new websites. I started to launch a whole new business, this whole new career that I'm in right now. The list of things goes on. And I don't do this to be braggadocious or anything. I'm trying to do it because I want you to know that the space from which I'm sharing this with you is the space from which all of that was accomplished and more, right? I mean, all this sort of stuff I'm still doing, right? On a weekly basis, a blog, a YouTube video, the whole list, right? Daily posts. This has come from the place of willingness, not so much willpower. And when I realized the difference between those things and I opened myself, which is, by the way, one of the things that's a big difference. Willingness is about opening. Willpower is about pushing, and it has its place. But willingness is about opening, aligning maybe more too, right? When I realized that difference, that's when I started to actually finish things. That's when I started to have a whole new productivity level, you might say. And that's why it excites me to share this with you, because I know the difference it can make, okay? So, the difference between willingness and willpower. The next thing I want to point out to you is that inspiration is really important, right? It's a very, very important part of accomplishing anything like that, right? You know, to get inspired. But inspiration can be very different from willingness. I'm going to run through this really silly example with you, or a simple example that I think we all know, right? Let's say it's after the holidays. It's the new year. You know, we just went through a long period of eating richly and you know, partying and all that kind of stuff, right? And you're on the phone with a friend and you're like, oh my God, I've gained, 5-10 pounds in the last couple of weeks. It's crazy. Oh, me too, right? The conversation goes on. I know I got to stop. I got to start curbing the way I'm eating. This is ridiculous. I feel like crap, Me too. Oh God, You know what? We should start working out together. Yeah, that's a great idea, right? I mean, have you ever had this kind of conversation before? And so what typically happens is you get inspired, right? You're talking, you're sharing, you're like, yeah, we should work out together. The next thing you know, before you even hung up the phone, you're saying, yeah, let's start working out together. Excellent, awesome, which is wonderful. The only thing is, you haven't actually checked, you haven't taken a moment to see, are you really willing to start a new exercise regime with somebody and commit to that? Does that make any sense? Like, you were immediately run by inspiration, which is, by the way, emotional. You're caught up in the emotion of the whole thing. Like, yeah, I need to do this. I've gained the weight, la, la, la. This is the realm in which I'm just going to keep saying Tony Robbins because I'm just trying to make an example. I don't mean to make him sound bad or anything because he's fantastic. But this is more where he works from, right? He's going to stir you up and get you inspired and get you pumped and make you want to push and go. That's not where I'm coming from right now. And this is the difference from willpower and inspiration to willingness, right? So let's go back to the conversation. So we have this conversation. What's another way to go about doing this? Okay, we're talking, we're getting caught up, but we remember, oh gosh, I remember this conversation I heard Adrien have about willingness. And I think, gee, that sounds really awesome, so-and-so, whoever you're talking to. I'm really into it, but I want to take a day or two to just think about it because I don't want to commit to you unless I really know that I'm willing to do it. Can you see the difference there? We've immediately started to shift things too because, you know what? We've taken it more seriously. I don't know if you can sense that, which is already, first of all, if you actually make the choice, you're probably more likely to see through it because the truth is you're taking more effort already, or not even effort, but you're taking more time. You're taking more time to actually consider and check, am I actually willing to do this? Because we know how that conversation normally goes, right? If you don't do that, you start working out together for a week. Within a week and a half, you're like, oh my God, I don't know why I committed to this. I don't have the time. I can't stand every time. I dread it. It's just terrible, right? Because you didn't check. You didn't take that time. And the next thing you know, you're not seeing through on that commitment. Here's the other thing I want to point out about the difference between willpower and willingness, or inspiration too, right? Getting caught up in the emotionality of it. What's wrong with that, right? What's wrong with that? I decided to do this. I worked out with my friend for a couple of weeks. I probably did lose a little weight. It's certainly never bad to, get some exercise. What harm's done? Well, potentially none. But if we continue to do that, if we continue in this way, we can start to build a habit. We can start to build a habit of starting something and never seeing it through. Now that's really already potentially damaging, right? The habit, because now it's something you got to try to break. It goes even deeper than that though, right? Because you can start to feel like, I can't do this. I never finish anything. I never see something through. You see, if you get caught up in the inspiration and the emotionality of something all the time, and then you start it and you get all pumped and then you peter out, that can be really damaging. That can stop you from doing something actually that you really do want to do, that really is important to you. And that's why it's important to take time to check. Am I really willing to do this? There's a great deal of power there. I hope you can sense it, and it can really make a big difference in your life. So that's one of the first instances to actually think about and take time and think about the difference between willingness and willpower, or getting inspired and going for it, The second one is, let's say that you actually did, right? So let's go back to the scenario. Let me talk. I'll talk to you in a couple days, and I'll tell you whether I'm really up for it or not, So then you decided, you know what? I really am. And one of the ways that you might do this too, let's think about how you would go about making that decision. How about that, right? We're going to get into this, by the way, too. I'm going to share with you 3 questions that you can ask yourself to help determine how willing you actually are, right? We're going to get into that in a minute, but let's stay with this scenario for a moment. So you take the time. One of the first things you might realize as you say, do I really want to start this workout routine with my friend, is, well, one, how busy are you? How much do you really care about it? Because you might reflect and go, you know what? This happens every single year. And every single year I gain 5-10 pounds, and then I lose it, right? The weather gets better. I stop eating so crazy. And you naturally just lose the weight anyway. So do I really need to take on the commitment of starting another exercise regime? That might be one of the ways you go about it. The next way, or the next possible thing, might be that, you're reflecting on it and you're thinking, I gained 5 or 10 pounds prior to that. I think I've probably gained 15 pounds the whole year, and then I put on another 5 or 10 during the holidays. I might really need to consider starting this, regime with her, right? I mean, you see the difference now, and that could be all of a sudden, yeah, I need to do that. I want to do this. I'm willing to do this. This is actually important, and I'm willing to take the time to make the commitment. You see it? Because there's a need for it, and I'm feeling that deep inside. So if you made that commitment and you start the workout routine with your friend, right? Well, here's the second time it's going to be useful. The second scenario, it's going to be useful to ask yourself or notice the difference between willpower and willingness. It's the same scenario, right? You've been doing it for a week or two now. You're starting to work out with them, and it's going okay. But of course, all of a sudden you hit the wall. You're like, I do not feel like doing this tonight. I know I said I was going to do it, but I don't feel like it. That's going to happen, right? It doesn't matter what level of willingness you found, more than likely you're going to find a place where you find yourself in that scenario, right? This is another good time to re-establish or reacquaint yourself with your willingness. Because if you don't do that, so here's the other scenario. If you just decide to go, like, I don't feel like, well, you got to do it. You made the commitment with your friend. Do it. That's willpower, right? Push, go, break. That's great. It takes a lot of energy and effort. And if you continuously fall back to that place to try to keep yourself consistent, you're going to find you peter out again. You're going to wear yourself out because that takes a lot of energy to break through like that. But if you first take time to reacquaint yourself with your willingness, it's going to put a lot more power behind your willpower, if that makes any sense. Because if you just try to use willpower, it's going to be a weak swing, sort of. In the blog, I actually wrote a blog about this last week. I call the willpower like a hammer. It's like the metaphor is the hammer. And willingness is more like a drill, right? You can do more things with the drill. It's a little more nuanced. Willpower is just kind of like, you smash it. That's what you can do with it. You push through, right? It's very important. A hammer is very important. But knowing the difference and knowing the appropriate place for it, it should be after you've taken a moment to reestablish yourself with willingness. I hope that makes sense. Because if you do that, again, it's going to put more power behind the swing of that hammer. Because willingness comes from power. Willpower comes from push, from force more. And we can very often, if we use willpower alone, it's actually coming from fear. It's actually, we're afraid that we're not going to do this thing. And that's not a great place to come from. And it won't usually last. The other thing about using willpower all the time is it kind of can take a toll. Like, you'll find yourself exhausted. You'll find yourself depleted from it because it takes a lot of energy. And you don't have that, you're not accessing the power of your willingness, which is actually, if you think about it, a deeper place of inspiration too, right? You're reacquainting yourself with why you wanted to do it in the first place. And then you use your willpower, by the way. Then you have to pull out the hammer and go. I mean, you do have to do that, but it's important to put it in its proper place, right? In its proper order. So I hope that's helpful. Oh my goodness, the sun's coming through on this. Yeah. Oh, wow. Gosh. Anyway, sorry. No, it's okay. I'm sorry, my wife's. So that's, hopefully I've laid pretty clearly the difference between, maybe I should, I'll try to do that. Okay, so maybe I can lay more clearly the difference, or hopefully I've laid out pretty clearly what the difference between willpower and willingness is. Now I want to talk to you about how to access whether you're really willing or not. This gets to be the next level, you might say, and this is, so you're going to take that time. You're not just going to get run away with your inspiration and your emotions and try to commit and then go and push through with your willpower. You're actually going to take some time to check, are you actually willing? Do you actually have a willingness inside of you to do this? It's a fantastic thing to do. And it's a multidimensional thing. Like, you're going to start working different muscles in your inner world. This is why I talk about it like building inner strength. When you take time to check your willingness, it's like taking time to build a firm foundation. It's another way to think about it. If you try to build this commitment without doing that, then you're not going to have a good firm foundation. It's like building your home on sand, as Jesus would say, right? On soil that's not stable. You haven't taken the time to find the place within you that is willing. Tapping that power. Okay, so here's 3 questions I want to share with you to help you determine whether you're actually willing. I've never not liked that skylight before. Okay, I like the skylight still, but okay, hopefully you don't mind. Question number 1. Am I willing to look and listen? Am I willing to look and listen? This question is all about self-awareness, mostly, right? It's taking the time to actually look within yourself to see, where am I? How do I really feel? Now, by the way, when we talk about accessing willingness, it's very rarely going to be 100% willingness. And we're not looking for 100% willingness. We're looking for enough that you can make a firm commitment, right? That you can feel like you got a foundation here to build from, right? So the first place to start is, am I willing to look and ask myself, am I willing to do this? Am I willing to commit this time with this friend to say, yes, I want to start working out? Another thing would be like, okay, what if my friend doesn't start doing it with me, or doesn't keep doing it with me? Do I still want to work out? Right? Look. And then listen to yourself. Don't push. See, if you try to get the answer too quick, if you don't take the time to listen, actually I just released a blog today about listening. And I did these back to back because they really work well together. Trying to find your willingness and knowing how to listen to yourself are very powerful skills, and they go together. Your willingness and your willingness to listen and your ability to listen is going to affect itself. Like, one feeds on the other. The more you're willing to look and listen, the more the more clarity you're going to gain. The more clarity you have, the more you're going to know, are you really willing? Does that make any sense? So, you're going to ask yourself this question, am I willing to look and listen? You're going to check, and then you're going to listen to yourself. You're not going to push. You're going to try to see if you can't distance yourself a little bit from that emotionality, right? About I should do this, I want to do this, like, that's all talk. That's all a story, as I say in the blog. Take time to actually listen. Listen means allow. Listen means open. Don't have an agenda. Just listen. Ask the question and then listen. I think you might be surprised at the powerful response you might get. Now you got to give it some time. You can't push these sorts of things, you know. That's why you're going to have to give that person a couple of days notice, right? Like, give me a couple of days, you know, because you're going to sit with it, wake up the next morning, sit with it again. This is how you check your real willingness. I'm telling you, this is so powerful and important and can save you a world of hurt, actually, right? Remember the scenario I talked about, if you start something and you fail, so to speak, or you don't follow through enough, you can start doing some inner damage to yourself because you're going to start blaming yourself. But it's actually not so much your fault. You just didn't take the time to do this, to ask these questions. Question number 2, am I willing? Am I willing to change? Am I willing to change? No matter what it is that you're thinking about doing, whatever this intention is, you... No, okay, sorry. No matter what it is this intention is, it's going to require some amount of change. Something's going to change, right? If it's the exercises, we'll just keep running with that scenario. You're going to have to change something in your routine, more than likely, right? You're going to have to change something in yourself. Now, I like to think of this question, what am I willing to change, as what am I willing to allow in? What am I willing to let happen to me, so to speak? What am I willing to let shift in me? And then you look and listen. You ask the question, am I willing to change? And you look and you listen. The third question is, am I willing? Oh my goodness, I almost forgot the question. Am I willing to sacrifice? That's a heavy word, and I picked it on purpose. I picked it because it has a certain tone to it already, and the tone is, you got to ask that. You got to ask yourself, whatever it is, right? Am I willing to sacrifice? Now, I like to think of the change as the coming in. Am I willing to let something come into me? And then am I willing to sacrifice? Am I willing to let go of something? More than likely, if you're going to start a new exercise routine, there's going to be something that you can't do now, right? Something you're going to have to sacrifice. Maybe it's that TV show you like to watch, right? Or that, half an hour you get to spend doing something else. Am I willing to sacrifice? It's a very powerful question, and you need to look and listen. That's why we started with, am I willing to look and listen? You need to know that first. That's a really important question. Am I willing to even take the time to look and listen? Am I willing to go to that place within me? I don't know if you can sense the difference here too. This is self-realization. This isn't self-empowerment. I'm not here pumping you up probably, right? There's a lot of what I'm saying that you might come to this place and go, no, I'm not. And you know what? That's okay. That's all right. You may not find that you're willing. You have to be okay with that. The final thing that I would like to throw out to kind of wrap up the questions is not a question as much as a realization. Like, so if you've sat with these for a little while, and maybe even as you do it the first time, you sit with these questions, you ask yourself, am I willing to look and listen? Am I willing to change? And am I willing to sacrifice? Then you could say, am I willing to not care at all? And that's not really exactly what I want to say. But what I want to say is that I want you to realize you don't need to do it. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're trying to change a heavy addiction, if you're really addicted to some really dangerous or harmful drug, or you're an alcoholic and it's really taking a toll on your life, you don't have to change. You might think, you might have to try to convince yourself that you have to change, but you don't. You can keep going the way you're going. What am I trying to say? It's important for you to realize that because you're making a choice. You shouldn't be pushing yourself. This is how you access willingness. Don't make it some scenario that you have to do it. You're not leaving it open enough to find your actual willingness. And I know that can be scary, by the way, right? Because you feel like if I push myself, I'll get myself through and I'll push my way through. Now, like I said, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. There's times for that. But when you're trying to access some willingness, I struggled with alcoholism, so I can speak from that a little bit. There was a day that I woke up and I said, I'm willing. Really, it was actually the opposite. I'm not willing. I'm not willing to do that again. The day I had before. But it was a different kind of willingness, right? Which meant I'm willing to stop drinking. But I didn't try to convince myself of that. I didn't try to say, well, I have to stop drinking, which, by the way, I did many, many times before, unsuccessfully, right? I have to stop it. I can see it's negative. It's taking a negative toll on myself, right? You don't have to. It doesn't matter what it is. You don't have to. It's important for you to see that. Again, I think I'm proving my point. I'm not Anthony Robbins here. I'm not trying to pump you up and get you all emotional. And I want you to actually look deeper and ask the question, am I willing? When the time is right, you'll be willing. I know that. I know that for you. So if you find that you're not willing, whether it's the diet, let's go back to the simple thing, whether it's the diet, if you keep going back, if it comes up again, you're still gaining the weight, whatever the scenario is, and you ask yourself again, if you give yourself the space, if you take the time to really check, there'll come a time you will be willing. Then you start to commit. Then you start to exercise willpower. So willingness, commitment, willpower, in that order. And then what's beautiful about that is once you start to use the hammer to break through those tough times, then you'll find that you do that, and all of a sudden now your willingness is more. You go back to check your willingness through another tough time, and all of a sudden you're more willing than you were before. And all of a sudden now your commitment's grown deeper. And guess what? So is your willpower, right? This is how it works if we work it well. This is the space from which I create now all the time. Every single day at some point, I'm not willing in a way. Like I don't feel like doing it. But I don't have to push myself so hard. I'm very in touch with my willingness to do it. So what I do, I think I've shared this before, I actually just find the easiest thing to do and get a little momentum, right? I exercise a little bit of willpower. It doesn't take me very long before my willingness kicks in, my commitment, and my willpower is, next thing I know, I'm plowing right ahead and getting done what I wanted to get done. But I don't have to push so hard. It happens much more naturally, much more fluidly, leaves lots more energy for the rest of my life now because I'm not always forcing so hard, which takes a lot of energy. I hope this was useful. I'm actually going to say too that I created a questionnaire for you to use. There's a link in the description. So if you want to explore these 3 questions more, you can fill out the questionnaire. Now, when you go there, you'll have to enter your email. That's just so that I can send your results to you. But you can fill out these questions. I'm going to go through 14 different questions, like just walking you through these 3 questions in a certain way. And it gives you an opportunity to really check how willing you are to do whatever this thing is that you're considering. I think you could find a very powerful tool. There's no gimmicks to it. It's totally free. There's no hitches or anything. You just got to go to the link, push the link, and enter your email and hit submit, and it'll take you right to the questionnaire, and you could run through it. So I hope that you'll use that. I think it'll be very useful for you. If for no other reason, it just helps you engage and proves to yourself one way or another a little bit more whether you're willing to do whatever it is you're thinking about. Whether it can even be like, consider your marriage or a friendship like that you feel like you need to deepen or you need to take a little more seriously and reestablish your commitment. This is a great way. You got to check first. Check first. Am I willing? Take the time to put a foundation down. I think you'll find it incredibly useful and powerful for you to do that. So it looks like we lost probably a lot of our listener or watchers. Maybe because my face is so bright you can't stand to look at it. But If there are any questions, I'm going to ask you to ask them. Otherwise, I'll wait a couple minutes here, talk a little bit more, and then we'll wrap this up for you. I also want to mention, too, that there are links down in the description that you can follow the blogs. Both the blogs that I referred to are down there, so you can just click that and go and read them. I think you'll find those useful to further explore everything that I'm trying to share with you. There's other links down there, too, I'm sure. Feel free to look at those. I ask also, please, that if you enjoyed the video, to please, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It means a great deal to me, and it helps me grow this thing that I'm trying to build here to share these things with more people. So I really appreciate your time, as always, because it's so precious.